Hello once again, everybody. Welcome to Soccer's Overtime. Welcome to our continuing summer Zoom quarantine series of interviews on YouTube and Facebook as well. My name is Craig Elsten. I am very pleased to be joined by the WMF World Cup champion coach for Team Mexico, soccer's assistant coach, longtime former soccer's player, the pride of San Diego and Tijuana. Rene Ortiz is our guest as we have Rene Week, and we focus on one of our absolute favorites. Rene, thank you for the time, my friend.
Well, thank you for the invite, Craig. Thank you very much.
It's absolutely
happy to be here.
It's our pleasure. All right, let's start, as I mentioned before I hit record, let's kind of start with the here and now and get soccer's fans up to date on what's happening, and then we'll go back, we'll take a look at your career, we'll talk about what's happened with the franchise over the years. But last week, the MASL made the announcement, we talked about it on last week's episode as well, that the season would not attempt to be resumed, there would be no playoff. They gave the Flash Western Conference champion, they gave Florida Eastern Conference champion, and they put an official end to the 2019-2020 season. Given the fact that the Mexican teams don't have the ability to cross the border right now to play competitively, isn't this really the only decision the MASL could have come to?
I think so. I think it was a good decision. I think just finish the season. Obviously, there's nothing that we all wanted to happen, or we all didn't want it to end it this way. But I mean, the safety of our athletes, the safety of the families of the athletes, obviously the situation with the border that didn't help. So I think it was the right decision. We all were looking forward for finish of the year on a positive note. As we were getting ready for the last third of the season, things started to change, and our team started to maybe play differently. Looking forward for the playoff, but it's always next year. I think it was the right call. And even though we are disappointed that we didn't have indoor soccer, but I think it was just the best decision for all of us.
Yeah, and I just don't see how there was any way to try and kind of stitch on a playoff at the end of this. There was too long a break. This is not a year-round league. Players move on to other things. It was going to be impossible to reconstitute the teams. To wit, the league, as mentioned, put an end, and that means you begin the next official league year, and that means free agency. And now we start to see some player movement around the league, and here comes Team USA's Kid Dynamite, Gordy Gerson, as the first signing of MASL free agency coming to San Diego. You've obviously seen Gordy play over the years. What are your thoughts on bringing in Kid Dynamite?
I think it's a good signing. At times, with people, the teams know that San Diego has Craig Childs and Leo as the top scorers, and it's always difficult for them to, as the year progresses, to get more and more space to do their magic. So I think bringing Gordy from a midfielder who can move forward and create offensive opportunities and score goals, because he's been proven to score goals in the league. So and every team that he's been a top leaders. So I think I'm looking forward to having this year and find him a good role and find him a good lineup so he can feel comfortable and showing his skills, and hopefully the process of him getting integrated with the team is a short process and we can see results quickly.
One thing I think we see year after year, Rene, is that when a player comes to San Diego in the middle of a career where they've been a star somewhere else, it always seems like there's a little bit of an adjustment period coming to the Soccers, because we don't just have one star on this team.
It's funny you said that, because I was thinking about that, and Phil Chiquis and I talk about this all the time. Not everybody's suited to wear the soccer shirt. The soccer shirt has a history, and I think it brings a little bit of extra pressure to them. And you might be successful on another team, and we come to soccer, and you probably feel overshadowed with some of the stars and the atmosphere and the ambience that surrounds the club. So it's always the possibility that might happen with the players that come in. And like you said in the past, and if you look in the 80s when I played, I remember one time we signed this great player, Poli Garcia, in the 87-88 season. He came from San Luis. It was a top scorer from San Luis and in the league. He struggled here in San Diego. Great guy. He worked hard, but just things didn't happen the way it happened to him in St. Louis. So it's been the history. It's not. This is not only the new face of the soccer. It's been the history in the past, and that some like superstars of the game or great athletes of the game struggle sometimes to get their abilities going here in San Diego.
It makes so much sense. And that's why on last week's podcast, Rene, I brought up Gordy's season in Florida, the one he just played, because the Tropics were a team that had a number of scoring attack options and guys like Pereira's that were going to be on the ball and like Carvalho that are going to be on the ball. And Gordy didn't have the 30-goal season with Florida, but he had more assists than goals. He was still way over a point a game, and he was helping in a different way. And that's kind of how I look at it when I see a player. I go, okay, it's one thing when you're on a losing team and they're going to just feed you the ball in front of the net. It's another thing to be a part of a winning team where it's all about just getting one more goal than the opponent.
Correct. So I think that's when we come in coaching staff to kind of like assess the situation, talk to the player, talk to others, and kind of find and create what's the best environment for him to be successful. And so in order for the club to be successful. So that's one of the challenges that we have, finding the right chemistry among the players. I mean, we, in the past, as you witness, we've been able to successfully manage to combine, the Mexican style players, the Mexican player with American players. So two different types of soccer. One is more technical, more finesse. The other more physical, more direct soccer. And in order for us to make it work, I think we've done a good job. So I don't think Gordy will have an issue, working with the Mexican players. He actually has a history of playing in Mexico. I don't know if you last summer he played in the Mexican Indoor Professional Soccer League. So that tells me that he has the ability to adjust and to be able to work with players that maybe play different than him, and is able to play in a different environment that he used to. So I think that's a plus. So I'm really looking forward to have him talk to him, see what kind of ideas does he have in order for us to create, like I said before, a better environment for him to be successful.
Absolutely. Now, free agency has continued around the league, and I just want to note for our viewers and our listeners that we are recording this a couple of days before release. So if something has happened at the very beginning of the week, we're not going to cover it right now. But to me, I don't think there's only a couple other players that can make a headline like St. Louis did this week with the announcement of the signing of Max Ferdinand. Rated by our buddy Sydney as the number one free agent on the board. If I was doing a ranking, he would have been my number one free agent on the board as well. And to go from the Wave to the team that the Wave has always beaten traditionally in St. Louis, I think this is a fascinating move for the MASL.
Yeah, I think. I don't know what happened there, but I'm assuming that he has a very good relationship with the coach because maybe they played together in Milwaukee. I'm assuming that because the distance between Milwaukee and St. Louis is not as much, he might be able to do certain things in Milwaukee and travel to St. Louis and play and then come back. I'm assuming that it was time for him and his family to maybe seek out those challenges without leaving too much of what he created in Milwaukee with his family. So I think it just, if you're looking from that perspective, it's a logical signing. Sometimes players feel very comfortable in one team and find for to move and to get out of challenges. I played in Milwaukee 4 years, and then I left to 1 year. I went to Cincinnati, and I was offered to somewhere else. But I always wanted to put myself in different type of a city and franchise. So I think in the case of Ferdinand, he might be looking into maybe retiring in a couple of years. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how if he's that crosses his head. But maybe he sees himself in St. Louis, future coach or assistant coach. I mean, there's a lot of factors that we don't know. I think it's a great sign for that they're there to stay and they want to do things right. I mean, I remember a couple of years they were talking about folding, and now she stepped in and said, no, we're not folding. We'll stay loyal to our fans. We'll stay loyal to our players and our families. So I think I'm happy for St. Louis. I'm really looking forward that St. Louis have obviously a better year than last year, because St. Louis is a franchise been there indoor soccer for a long time. So I'm wishing all the best.
Absolutely, yeah. Credit to Shelley Clark for coming in and really being a savior the way she's run that franchise. They just re-signed their very charismatic keeper Paolo as well. So and he got a big extension. So exciting things happening. They traded for Guernsey, or pardon me, signed Guernsey, the kid out of Baltimore. So they're definitely stocking up. And I think you're right. I think Everton is someone who really has his eye on the talent that he's worked with and that he knows. So that's great news for St. Louis overall. Now, I guess for all of us, it's all a matter of speculation, isn't it, Rene? Because, I mean, we're seeing right now, now I know you as a teacher, you know what's going on with the school districts right now. And all of a sudden they're in the spotlight now because the time is coming. And there's a lot of discussion, a lot of preparation that, quite frankly, I don't know if it's going to come together. I don't know if we're going to have kids at classes in the fall. All of a sudden, college football, where everyone was saying, "Oh yeah, no problem, no problem." It looks like maybe a problem. The NFL may be a problem. And for our sport and our league, we know the MASL can't play without fans. They just don't have the option to play in empty arenas and to cover the costs of playing without any revenues. So I guess for all of us, we're just all the biggest fans of team science right now, huh? Find that vaccine.
I think so. I mean, we're just hoping that we just get the people who are getting influenced by this virus down. I think that's going to create a different picture. A couple weeks ago, we were very optimistic about what was happening because we saw like there was no rise of cases, and we're like, okay, I think we're going the right direction. And then this happens a few days ago when the rises went up. So now we'll go back to even before we had the pandemic. So it's hard to tell. However, if we as society, we just stick and be disciplined and how to take care of each other, I think we're going to see a lot of progress on the communities, which is going to affect, like a domino effect in other places like sports. I was very happy to see that baseball started. It's going to start. So I think that if we do the right things by the end of this year, we might have obviously another indoor season, which is this is all what we want. We want to be back in the game, but again, it's up to how we do as a community and as a society dealing with this pandemic.
I mean, this stuff is hitting close to home, right, Rene? I mean, in terms of you've got a daughter about to go into her senior year of school who plays sports. So, just like all those poor kids from 2020 spring sports that never got a chance to play those seasons, that's in her sights right now. But for yourself, I mean, working in the profession as well, this is one of your jobs, is to teach. And I know that there's not one teacher in the world right now that feels 100% secure about what's happening. It's all up in the air.
Correct. We started this. I remember a week before we went out to spring break. That was March, correct? The second week of March when the school decided not to go back. So March, April, May, June, now we're July. So I'm just more concerned about the mental health of our kids, mental health of our students. Youth sports being suspended. Now it's time to reopen a little bit. Playing sports is a big component of the development of the child, of the youth here in America. And now you're taking that away. You're taking the social aspect and the educational aspect, which is obviously going to school. And now you're stuck at home. It's a very difficult environment for a young individual to be able to have a good mental health, I think. So we just got to keep optimistic. We got to find ways to stay busy. We got to find ways to challenges to make like for example here at home, we try to she does exercises, keep ourselves busy as much as we can, and do the right thing. Try to stay home and be healthy for us and for others, and hopefully this will go away and we'll go back to school. And I think if we do baby steps and start slowly incorporating everything to our lives, I think we'll be okay by the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's the one great thing. We said it before, and we'll say it again, that MASL does have time on its side. It has the ability, even to push back their season a little bit and still have it. It doesn't have to fire the second week in November, for example.
By cutting the season short, that that put everything. It gave us more advantage to work for the next season.
Right.
So I think, like I said, it's a good call. So hopefully now we need to regroup and do a plan, and maybe by November or December, like we'll see. We will
Rene,
see.
uh, let, great stuff on what's happening in the here and now. And now I want to hit rewind. I want to go in the Wayback Machine a little bit, talking to my dear friend,
Okay.
Rene Ortiz, because as mentioned, you have such a rich history with this city, with the city of Tijuana, and with this sport. And I think just a brief telling of that history, not saying tell me your life story, but how did you begin? When was your first exposure to football rapido?
Okay, so when I was 16, I think it was 16, the San Diego Soccer, led by Rod Newman, went to Tijuana and did a press conference, and they were looking for local Tijuana players, uh, maybe to join their organization. So at that time, I remember I met Fernando Clavijo, it was Hugo Perez, it was Rod Newman, it was Johan Arnio. So Spanish-speaking players, one from Uruguay, the one from LA, Hugo Perez, American, but he was a background from El Salvador, I think, family from El Salvador. And so I came to Tijuana, and I was 16. I was invited to that meeting. I talked to Ron Newman. He invited me to try out for the Sockers. So fast forward, at 17, I signed with the Sockers. And back then, there was nothing in Tijuana for somebody like me. It was the only option to become professional or try to seek a professional career in soccer was travel to Mexico City and the Sockers. You know, I grew up watching the Sockers in the early 80s. I used to come to the Qualcomm Stadium, Jack Murphy Stadium at that time. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
to watch the Sockers outdoor. So when Ron invited me to come in and try out, it was I would say the closest thing for to my dream to become a reality. So fast forward, I signed at 17. I ended up playing for the Soccer 6 seasons in two different stages. One from 87 to 91, and the other one, the CSL, 93, 94, 95, which are those, I was part of 3 championship teams. And so the Soccer was the first team that gave me the opportunity to pursue my dream, which is play soccer and get paid, or play soccer and be able to sustain myself, right? And so that's like my alma mater of in the soccer world. So that's I was being grateful to with the Sockers. And so after that, I like I said before, I played different teams. I was in Milwaukee, I was in Dallas, Burn, MLS a little bit, and I after 13 years of indoor soccer and outdoor soccer, I stopped playing, went back to college, got my degree, got my coach's license, and then got involved as a coach.
Incredible.
So that's pretty, yeah.
You know, there might be a couple spots along the way that I got to stop and ask you about along that incredible journey you just described. Let me start with let me start with the time that you came in, because you came in the middle of the heyday of the San Diego Sockers. In the midst of that run, you part of 3, as you mentioned, of those 10 championships in 11 years. People often talk about what was different in the 80s for indoor soccer versus the current sport. And I think a couple of things that are usually put up on the bulletin board are the ownership, exposure, and then the one that for me is number one was no MLS, no outdoor major professional sports league for soccer players to go to, which made indoor a much more palatable option. Of those 3, what do you think was the most important in terms of making indoor what it was in the 80s?
Well, if you look at it, the league started, the MISL started right after the NISL ended, right? So there was like kind of like there was a wave of soccer when the first soccer in America in the 70s with Cruyff, with Pelé, with Beckenbauer. When that ended, there was still this atmosphere of fans wanted to see soccer, wanted to learn more about the game. So I think those fans they were in the 70s kind of transferred themselves to the indoor game. So that kind of like kept us going for a little bit. And then the other ingredient was the quality of the players that were involved at that time. There was a lot of Europeans, a lot of foreigners, uh, Americans as well. But every city had two or three superstars that made that the game very different than what they're used to watching, right? Um, I remember you go to Wichita, there was Chico Borja, there was Del Irvine, there was all these guys. And then you go to Baltimore and then you see uh, uh, another set of players that you have to worry about. And then you go to Chicago, there was another guy. So every time there was like a really excellent top elite players in every city that represented the team very well. It was a very competitive league. Okay. Um, the ownerships, I mean, I don't know how much the ownership got involved with the development of the game. They were selling tickets. There were the arena where there were a good number. It was from 5,000 to 8,000 people in the arena. In some places there were packed arenas at 10, 12. Uh, but I think the ingredients of the old NISL coming into the new indoor league with the fans transferring over, the players that were there at that time, the well-known player. We had ex World Cup players. You know, we had, for example, and even Branco playing the World Cup. Um, the guy from the soccer, Caldena playing the World Cup. Um, so we had all these elite European players that people in America, immigrants in America, recognize them from their country and they will come and watch.
Hmm.
So I think we lost that a little bit, obviously because of the different leagues out there in soccer in America. We don't have now the exclusive rights for those players. Now, obviously, they prefer to go somewhere else.
Right, right.
But I
That
think on the good positive side, when players come in, when fans come in and see our product, they are really impressed of the quality of the game. You know.
yeah. No, absolutely. And it's just interesting. I think you brought it up. I mean, that's an NBA style setup, right? When every team's got a couple of recognizable, marketable stars. And so you say, come see Stan Stamenkovic and the Blast or the Steamers.
Mm-hmm.
Come see Jungle and the Stars. And you can just go, come see Tattoo and the Sidekicks. And you've got that star everywhere. And I think maybe one of the differences in our league of late, and that's why I bring up ownership, is that you've got to have the ability to pay those salaries to bring those players into every market, as opposed to now I mean, that's why I think Ferdinand is an exciting type move, because that's a player going from an established championship team to a team that's trying to rise to the top. You want that. You want more spread out startup.
Right. Right. That I mean that plan has been proven to work. That's how the MLS started. If you remember when the MLS started in 1996, you had two or three, maybe like they call it franchise players. They go like in Dallas, they had Hugo Sanchez. In LA, they had I know Valderrama was in Florida
Right.
or Columbus, I can't remember. And then you have all these uh, uh, Jorge Campos. So the system works. Look what happened to us when Landon came in, right?
Right.
You can see a totally different environment, and there were people buzzing about the indoor game, and so I think the challenge is obviously pay the salaries and to make it consistent, and hopefully fans will see the beauty of the game and really like admire the ability of these athletes have and how they perform on the indoor field.
Makes absolute sense. You, as you mentioned, you went back to school, you got your degree, you got your coaching license. You are now a very well established and successful coach, both at the youth level and at the professional level with us, and at the WMF level as being the two-time coach, three-time coach of Team Mexico. So my question here is, what did Ron Newman teach you when you were a young player that you still think of today as a coach?
You know, I think you're one of the few person that I'm gonna tell this. I've been very blessed to be around the winningest coach, the 3 or 4 winningest coach of the history of indoor soccer. I played for Ron Newman, okay? I played for Keith Tolzer. I played for Eric Dyer. And if you look at the careers and their achievements, they all have championships and they're probably the top 3 coaches in indoor soccer that won championships. So now that I'm a coach, that I reflect and strategies and ways to make it work, to make the best out of the players. What Ron Newman did the best, in my opinion, it was the way he managed the team. He was a manager. He always looked at the lineup and say who can work better with like Queenie and Kevin Crow. They work very well together. And then you put Hugo Perez in front because Hugo was more offensive player, so Queenie can do like the defensive work. And then you put maybe Julie V or Sango. No, you put Julie V because Sango would get along with Bronco Segura, would switch it with Hugo, offensive mid. So he always find ways to have the guys on the team that get along the best, like they communicate better with the ball, and they do their magic together better, right? So one of the things that we do here in soccer, for example, is it's not a secret. We always try to find fiber with Childs because they're very good. Leo and maybe with Pollo or Slob, you know. So that's the thing that Ron Newman did. They always trying to find ways and bring players in every year that will fit into what he already had. And it was very good at reading the game and calling the timeouts when you needed to call the timeouts and make changes during the game, like on the fly. I remember one time one player was not having a good game. I say, son, you're not having a good game. You got to sit out. And it goes, okay, now your chance to the guy who was. So the guy came in and scored 2 goals. It was like it takes a lot of courage to change a starting player and to put a sub player, but Ranyo made it work. So everybody knew that every time you have minutes on the field, if you don't take advantage, you probably will never see it again. So that internal competition among players was always present and always uh, made the team work better at high intensity at all times. So reading the game, managing all the players, that's one of the 2 best qualities I think Ron have, and the ability to communicate. His personality helped him. He was very approachable. He always talked to players. He always talked to the leaders. He always had any issues. He picked up his battles too. He didn't go crazy over certain things. So he was very smart. And again, I see him as a like the overall the way he's a manager, the way he managed the whole like the whole team. He always looking for little details, always looking what you can get best, who needed to conversation, who need a meeting, who just thinks let it go. And you always find the soccer's like it was a fresh team. If you look at the videos, the team was always fresh. It was always ready to go. The training, it was never too much. It was not maybe too little. It was always just perfect. And the last thing I'd say about Newman, I never saw him panic. He never panicked. I remember losing a series one time. We were down. It was at the 87 or 88, I believe, against Baltimore, and went to Baltimore and we won it. And it was never screaming or yelling or going crazy. He had trust and confidence in his players, so he was a very composed man too. So that helped him make a good decisions. He was not very emotional, where the emotions takes over, and now you make decisions based on your emotions. He was always very analytical.
Right. Right. And one thing that's very important about that is to be able to communicate too as well, right? So if you're going to be analytical, you also need to be able to have your players understand how you do that so they don't have an emotional reaction and they understand, yeah, I did have to sit down and, so-and-so did have to jump in and he got a couple of goals and that's on me. It's not on coach.
Correct. And I wanna bring Eric Geyer name up because Eric Geyer, one of the biggest things that he was very disciplined coach, but he also will prepare you for the negative possible or negative situation that might happen in the game. He will always tell us, hey, the referee's gonna make bad calls. Hey, the referee might do this. Hey, you might get kicked. Hey, you might do not react. Stay composed. Accept that it's part of the game. It's not personal. So So whenever like we get a 2 minutes, we didn't go crazy. But like for example, if we let's talk about the game in Baltimore. When we thought we would just unfairly played by the referees, right? You look at when we played Baltimore last year, and our team was not ready for that type of hostile environment. Not from the fans, I'm talking for the referees. All the situations that happened on the game, and our reaction was not the proper one, and we ended up losing the game. And we probably one of the poorest performance that the soccer I've been part of happens. So, Eric Geyer will prepare you for those type of things. They will tell you, hey, if it happens, just calm down, don't lose your mind, stay focused, and he was very disciplined. I think that's a good example how different coaches bring different aspects of the game, and you now that you're a coach, you have to remember, analyze, and pick those things, and hopefully express them and work on them so your team is prepared for any type of challenges they might have.
So much information that you have in your experience, in your mind, in your heart. You've learned, you've assimilated. And as the head coach of the WMF World Team Mexico, going to the WMF World Cup, you've had the opportunity then to have these all-star teams that you get the chance to coach. And of course, it was a bit different in 2019 because it was a very much soccer's club that you brought to Perth. You brought 8 soccer's players along with yourself and Victor Melendez as coaches, but still, nonetheless, you've got kids like Torres and I can't call him a kid anymore, but Vaca, from Monterrey, and you go around the league, you had some,
Right.
Great talents bearing that, so on and so forth. Viela. So how do you have to adjust between a team that you get to manage for a long time and a club that comes together really over the course of like 2-3 weeks?
Right. So, first of all, I understand my role at soccer is very different than my role with the national team. There's two different roles, two different positions, two different hats, right? Um, so my role on the team, one thing that I learned is you have to bring people like Phil does around me that I feel have the ability and capability to do the job. So incorporating Victor and the goalkeeping and assistant coach, bringing Luis Borrego from Monterrey, having Eusebio Martinez on the fitness, we assemble, I think, a good coaching staff where everybody's focused on doing the job plus more, plus bringing more information to me, and we discuss all the issues as a group. Um, so that helps me, and I think I'm now mature enough to understand that it's not about what I want, it's what the team needs. It's about what the team wants. It's about what the team necessities are. So the number one challenge for me, Craig, was to pick up the right set of guys. It's 15 guys. We're looking close to 20 something, plus 25. And then, but that's only one league that I have to look for players. Then you have the 7-a-side league in Mexico City, was a very competitive league. It's an amateur league. Mexico City has the best 7-a-side uh, soccer league in probably the continent. So you have to look at those players. And they have the Fútbol Rápido professional league that's still playing organized indoor soccer in Mexico over the summer. So that's another bunch of players that I need to look. And then anything else that comes with it, all the amateur, all upgoing. I had D2, for example, players like Ismael Rojo,
Yes.
that it was having a great season that I had to look into. So my decision was not made, where do you play? Is I have to evaluate him as a player and as an individual. Like, is this a guy who has same set of values that's going to get along with what we have? Is that going to create a conflict? So our decision are basically merely based on skills. It had to do also with the personality individual. We had to make some tough calls. I mean, we have Damian Garcia from Monterrey as a defender, and then we have Ismael Rojo, upcoming star. Who you do pick? You go with experience, you go with youth. And that was a discussion that would happen for many weeks. And I decided, and we at the end we decided to go with Ismael, which I think was a good call. Daniel Villela, Popper Hernandez. I didn't know Popper Hernandez,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I didn't know him, but I invited him to one game one time, and I saw that he may bring something extra than what we have. So then you have to look at. I'm just giving the examples how different type of players and personalities, and I guess the big question was, could they get along? Are they going to be able to get along? Are you able to interact for 10, 15 days or 2 weeks and don't go crazy at each other? Which is probably the biggest kind of the questions we have. How different personalities crash and how they're going to clash or how they're going to react under adversity. So we work on that, and I think I'll do honestly, we did win the championship. We could play a little bit better sometimes, yes, but at the end, I think we did everything that we could to bring a good product, a good team, and based on the experience that we all had, and we assembled probably one of the best teams ever for Mexico.
What an incredible 2-week period! What an incredible result, and so much satisfaction for so much hard work to result in the lifting of the cup and to bring that momentum into our season. I think there was a lot of excitement for that, Rene, and that you mentioned wearing different hats, and I wanted to ask you about a different hat, because when the Sockers come together, you talked about it when you were playing, how there were many different languages being spoken in the locker room, because you had European players, you had Mexican players, you had American players. In our locker room, I mean, I guess Slav could start speaking Serbian if he wanted to, but basically it's English and Spanish that's being spoken in our locker room, but there's more Spanish than English being spoken in our locker room. And our head coach speaks English, you speak Spanish. So as I've seen many times, you're put into situations where you need, either yourself or Victor kind of need to be a live translator, not only of the words of the coach, but also his message, his meaning.
Right. So one factor I want to bring up, I don't want to open a can of worms, but I'm not the guy who's back when I play, all that. No, but one fact that I see is a big difference, and I was talking to other coaches about this. Back then, you said it. There were different languages, but we were talking, we were interacting. The locker room was full of conversation. After practice, we just stay for 30, 40 minutes, and then we went to lunch together. But it was just conversations about the league, about this, about that, about life, we talk about diets. We talk about, I remember Brian Quinn will always bring proper diets to have. But this conversation happened in the locker room. Today, this generation of players, they don't talk too much. They're on their phones. They're in electronics. They're texting. They're doing videos on themselves. They're not expressive as we were back then, which I think doesn't benefit our situation. Yeah. Because we are in the team. We're in the team work setting. We're going to be successful as a team. The more that we interact and we learn about others, the more successful we'll be in understanding others and how to work with each other. My players, they're on the phones, they're listening to music, they're doing their own thing. And that's one of the things that I feel, and I bring it up to Phil, hey, this needs to, if any way we can change this, if any way we can influence this, so we can make him interact. So we started with having dinner without no phones, and a couple of things had to adjust, but it's a very difficult challenge. So with that said, now we have guys from different languages, mostly Spanish. There's a challenge because sometimes they tell you they understand, and then we go into the field, either they forgot about what they understand, or they just lied to you and told you they understand, but they didn't understand. So that's like a constant situation that it never ends. We'll tell some guy, hey, do you understand? We write it down, yeah, and we go in the field, and then they give other excuses why they didn't do it. So we need to be on top of our game. Victor, myself, and even Chiquis, make sure that they understand, remind them all the time, both English and Spanish, but mostly in Spanish, and try to be that connection, that bridge, that the player, again, has enough tools, has enough information so he can be successful, which that's what I want. I want him to be successful. So that try to communicate and express but you gotta be careful too. If you do it too much, the player might explode with too much information. So you gotta be very wise what to say, how much, how long you're gonna say it, when to say it. If it's under the game, under stress, if there's just find the right timing to say it. So that's kind of like part of my role with the team. Was being I enjoy a lot. I'm being very blessed again, and I will continue doing until Phil asks me to do it.
Well, you're right. It's such an interesting and I think kind of intricate and consistent challenge for the group. And pues trataré a ayudar la temporada próxima. You know, I mean, I'm going to try to help. You know, I'm trying to learn every day to try to catch up to you native speakers. But it's something that I think about a lot too. Now, along those lines, and along the lines of cans of worms and difficult questions for that matter. There's one player who's not with us right now in Brandon Escoto, who was one of your stars in Australia. He took a brutal kick to the ankle in the semifinal that I do think affected him at the start of his Sockers campaign. But, you know, things didn't work out toward the end of the season. And I don't know right now, and maybe you know, what's going on with Brandon, but as of now, he's not a member of this franchise. Gordy's been signed. You know, ostensibly, you could see Gordy as an Escoto replacement. I don't think anyone truly replaces Churras when he's at his peak, but what's your opinion as to why things fell apart this year with Churras and the Sockers?
Brandon comes from different hostile environment. If you want to learn more about him, and you will find out that the circumstance of his life, childhood, is very difficult. With that said, I think we provide him the Sockers. We provide him with a good environment for him to be successful. We support him any way we could, but he felt otherwise. He felt differently, and that's when the issue started to happen. If you look back at the season when Brandon played, his productivity was not very good. It was not up to what we expected. It was not what we anticipated from him. And even then, he was still getting minutes in the time on the field. So from the coaching staff, there was a little bit of frustration that what's going on with him, why he's not producing, why he's not being himself. Because by now, this will be his third or fourth season with the Sockers. I know he played for me 1 year in Atletico Baja when it first started. Probably third season, maybe fourth season with the team.
I think fourth.
Now, fourth. So now his role was going to change, so like a more reliable veteran player.
Right.
So when things started not going well for him, that was the issues, and that was ended up making what ended up happening was he departed from the team. Now, what I heard, he signed with you probably know this. There's a new outdoor professional league in Mexico.
Yes,
the Mexican top team, and then Liga Balompié Mexicano. And so this is a different league. It's not affiliated with FIFA. It's not affiliated with Mexican Federation. They're independent, but they're professional. So I think now he's shifting to pursuing an outdoor career, which I wish him all the best. I think he has ability. I think he has some challenges to transfer from the indoor to the outdoor, but I think he has the technical and ability to overcome it. And I just wish him that he get back to his game and he enjoys playing soccer again and he finds happiness.
Do you see Brandon as an outdoor 10? Where do you see him?
Yeah, I think so. As an outdoor 10, there maybe outdoor 10 or maybe on the left side taking people on, or maybe play on the right side so he can come in and use the left foot to cross. So yeah, I see more like a position behind the center forwards. Mm-hmm. When you have the little, he can play between the lines of the midfielders and the defenders. There's two lines right there. So you get the ball, and now he has a 1/3 to go and create some damage to the opponent. So I don't see him on the defensive side like a defensive mid, like a Pollo maybe, or Christian Gutierrez. So I see him more like an offensive third where he can get the ball and he has maybe like another 30, 40 yards to maneuver or 50 meters to maneuver and try to create some offensive situations.
All right, last thing for you, my friend. Continue, because it's just been a fascinating conversation to me. NASL is an international league, for now at least, and we should certainly hope to continue. Monterrey has been the best club in the league pretty much ever since it's been back. in terms of overall production, understanding that the Blast won a couple of titles at their expense. Sonora came back in, and they were going to be a playoff club. They were the third seed at the time that things had shut down. It was almost impossible for them to not make the playoffs. So it was going to be 2 for 2 Mexican teams in the playoffs. We took the trip down, through Monterrey and through Hermosillo in February. And I think we can both see the incredible talent and the passion of the games, and also ways in which the league could be better supported by its fans or by the ownership. There could be a more robust product down there. How do you see this continuing? What's the path the MASL needs to take? What are the path the teams in Mexico need to take to continue to grow this, to have this something that grows and doesn't come and go?
Right. So I think and I don't know too much about about the league, how it works, but I would like to see first the teams that already established really reestablish themselves as a long-term commitment with the game, right? Not teams that come in and try a couple of years, see how it goes, and then kind of like, oh, didn't work. I gotta seek other adventures. So I think they have to establish themselves in teams like Dallas, right? Dallas, we lost them. He came in. We lost him. They're back. Dallas Sidekicks, I think they need to stay for the right reasons, and they're part of the history of indoor soccer. Also, other cities, for example, I know Wichita had a big fan base. They're not around anymore. We had a team in LA, Anaheim. The LA Lasers then become the Anaheim. There's no teams in LA. I would like to see one. So maybe revisit those teams in the past that were successful in the soccer. Canton in Ohio, there was the Canton Invaders. There were for many years, actually they won the league in the MPSL. Then I know there's a fan base there in Ohio. Cincinnati, I played there, but there was another team in Buffalo that I remember, Buffalo Blizzards. It was very well known. They had a great fan base. They have an arena. I don't know what happened to them, which it makes sense if you have a Buffalo, Utica, and Baltimore, and then even Harrisburg. So you have like a 4 teams in that area. So I think for the league established with franchise that in the past had history with indoor soccer and revisit those. We went to Idaho, right? We had the game in Idaho, Mexico, USA, a couple years ago or last year. And Idaho seems to be like a great arena with Boise. When we had that game in Boise.
Yeah.
And Boise, it seemed to me like a good place to have it because there's no outdoor soccer. So again, from the league, identify American cities who may have more greater success in promoting the game and establish itself as a solid franchise. And in Mexico, we just got to be selective. I think Monterrey and Sonora done a great job. I heard that Chihuahua is, they played D2 last year. They were in first place till this happens. So I heard that they're very excited about coming in and maybe joining this year. Close to the border makes more sense that cities that are, outside away from the border. However, in 1993, I believe 94 CISL, we had a team Mexico City. We also team Mexico City, and they played only for 1 year. But it was a great city to have a game, Mexico City. So again, establish the American cities, American franchise, and solidify them as franchises going to be there for the long run, and really study on Mexican cities you want to invite with the right infrastructure, the right ownership group, and support them any way we can to make them successful franchise. And I think we have a league who's very unique, who had created a rivalry between Mexican and American teams. I know the rivalry between us and Monterrey is a good example of that. The rivalry between Sonora and San Diego is a good example of that. The rivalry between Dallas and Monterrey is a good example. They started in the early 90s. I remember when I played for Monterrey. And like in Sidekick was the Clásico, and fans were packed the arena, Monterrey Arena, because Tattoo, they hated Tattoo and they hated us when we go to Dallas. So that created more people come to the stadium. So create rivalries between 2 teams that are either, close to each other or in the division. That will help also promote the game in Mexico.
I'll tell you what, this was like, I think our 8th or 9th Zoom quarantine interview of the summer, Rene, but it is #1 in my heart. I think we got more interesting, fascinating conversation. And of course, we were bedeviled by a sketchy Zoom feed the whole way. So that's just the gods laughing at us. It's okay. But I thank you so much. Really interesting conversation, a lot of thought-provoking stuff. And have a great summer. We will see you again, hopefully sooner than later down the line.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you so much for having me. Anytime, my friend. Anytime for you. Thank you.